What's going on, everybody? Bryan Fonseca here, youtube.com/Bryan Fonseca. You're watching the Build Up, which is not yet a show. We will have a show on this channel, a proper sports show at some point in the future, hopefully not too distant future. But for now, this is what we're doing. Segments, experimental, what I have time for outside of jobs, actual work. I was doing a lot of Olympic content, covering the Olympics, New York Post, Action Network, and obviously here on the channel. Hadn't had the chance to really hone in on this particular video like I've been wanting to, and it's something on the Puerto Rican national team and where things stand. First things first, Nelson Colon remains as head coach. Carlos Arroyo, who's been the GM for a few years, is going to stay pat. He's already made one big move. We're going to touch on that in a little bit. But the Puerto Rican national team, to recap really quickly before getting into what the future can look like. 0-3 in the Olympics. Looked like they were going to beat South Sudan. They were winning at halftime. Jose Alvarado gets hurt late, changes the complexion of the rest of that game, and they could barely hit a shot from three in the second half. I think they were 1 for 15 or something outrageous like that. It was a ridiculously bad percentage after shooting the lights out in the first half. They were beating Team USA after one quarter, and obviously Team USA ended up beating them. Puerto Rico did cover, but Puerto Rico lost that game. And then they lost to Serbia before that. They were already eliminated by the time they faced Team USA to end their Olympic run. So 0-3, still haven't won an Olympic game since 2004, but did return for the first time in 20 years. Here's where the program is at now. The program is already in the midst of qualifying for the FIBA AmeriCup, which is going to take place next summer in Nicaragua. Puerto Rico's 1-1. Everyone in their group is 1-1. The way this works, 12 teams are going to compete. There are 16 qualifying right now. So basically, you just have to finish top 3 in your group. Puerto Rico right now is in a group where everybody's 1-1. Everybody's tied. They split with the Bahamas in February. That's one of the teams in their group. The other two are the United States and Cuba. Cuba actually beat the United States in February. Granted, it wasn't Team USA, but typically for these sort of qualification processes, Team USA puts out a team of G Leaguers, maybe a couple guys overseas playing in like Europe and things of that nature. But for the most part, this is how it went down. And Cuba ended up beating the United States in February. So everyone in the group is 1-1. Puerto Rico still has to play Team USA twice. They have to play Cuba twice. And as long as they don't finish in last place in their group, they will qualify for the AmeriCup. They always qualify for the AmeriCup. If they don't, it'll be a failure, but they always do, though they haven't medaled since winning a silver in 2013. So that's going to be important to see if they can get back on track and actually get a medal. They have 3 gold medals in this tournament, but they haven't had one since 1995. It's been a bit of a drought, but they haven't medaled in the last couple of tournaments. So we'll see if they can do that this coming cycle. If you want to know exactly when those games are, November 22nd is when Puerto Rico plays Team USA, and then Cuba plays Puerto Rico on November 25th. In February, on the 20th, Puerto Rico is going to play Team USA, and then they end off the FIBA AmeriCup qualification process playing against Cuba February 23rd of next year. Okay, so if you look at the roster Puerto Rico had for the Olympics in 2024, obviously it was a roster built on speed. It was a roster built on shooting. The way that they were going to beat you was creating looks from 3, hitting 40-ish% of their 3-pointers, which is how they were successful against Lithuania, Italy, Mexico in their own bracket to qualify for the Olympics. They were shooting about 38% on high volume, and they were also creating turnovers and scoring off of those turnovers. They like to play fast and they like to shoot, spread the ball around. Kind of a small team. Only one player, George Condit IV, above 6'8", and obviously having Jose Alvarado after not having him in the World Cup the year prior was a big deal. Tremont Waters also being back from the World Cup was a big deal. But you look at who's going to be the core moving forward, you would expect that those 3 would play big parts in that. George Condit, Jose Alvarado, and Tremont Waters, coincidentally also the 3 youngest players on the team, all of whom are going to be just hitting, or in the case of George Condit IV, under 30 years old by the time we get to the next Olympics. So assuming that all 3 guys are still playing at a high level, you would project that you could have them in tournaments moving forward. At least you want them for the World Cup and the Olympics. There are going to be younger players taking some of these spots, and there are going to be players who honestly play themselves out of a role here. One in particular is Ismael Romero, who came over from Cuba, has been playing for the national team since 2021, has been playing regularly, but he is the oldest player on this team. is 33 years old right now, is going to be 37 by the time we get to the next Olympics, 36 by the time we get to the next World Cup. Even at the America Cup next year, he'll be 34. He's somebody that you're going to look at, and for a reason we're going to get to in a second, to potentially replace on this roster, depending on how things sort of shake out with the new addition on their team. We're going to get to that in a second. But otherwise, up and down the roster, I think if you're trying to field the best team possible, Julian Strawther is the first place that I would look, because he has played for the national team before, just not the senior team, but he has played at the youth level. He's with the Denver Nuggets. He didn't play in the Olympic run. Obviously, they could have used him. I think he's going to be very good this year with Denver. You're going to see the shooting ability. He can shoot threes at a high clip. He showed that at Gonzaga. He hasn't showed it at the NBA yet, but hasn't had a big opportunity. They're in a position where they're going to have to play him. They're going to have to play guys like him, Peyton Watson, Christian Brown, because look at their team. They've lost a lot of veterans. So Julian Strawther is going to have to play, and hopefully you're able to get him, if you're Puerto Rico, to play in the America Cup next year, or if not, at least in the World Cup following that and the Olympics. He'll still be in like his mid-20s at that point. He's very young. The big addition on this team has already happened. Carlos Arroyo went out and got Tai Odiase, center who's been playing professionally for several years now. He played in the BSN this year with Piratas, that's in Quebradillas. And he played in 29 games. He was averaging 19 points, 7 rebounds, over a block shot per game. Shot blocking was his thing when he was at Illinois Chicago. He was the Horizon League Defensive Player of the Year in college twice and on the all-defensive team 3 times. He also played briefly in the NBA Summer League in about 2018 with the Phoenix Suns. So a lot of stops on his career. He's played professionally in different parts of the world. He's also played in Germany, for example. He's played in the G League. He's played in Greece. He's actually played in the Euro Cup in each of the last 2 years. He's going to play in the Euro Cup again with a team from Turkey. So that's going to be interesting to watch him this coming year. Not 30 years old yet. He will be 29 later this year. And by the time we get to the America Cup, he will still be 29 years old. He's 6'9", he's 240. If you look at this roster, the Puerto Rican team roster, one of the things they absolutely needed was a center behind George Condit IV. We'll see if Tai Odiase challenges him for the starting role. Don't know how that's going to play out necessarily, but Odiase is definitely at least a backup center, at least, okay? Somebody who is going to block shots, somebody who is a pick and roll partner, and somebody who's going to be physical. This is something that this team absolutely needed. If you watch them in the World Cup, if you watch them in the Olympics, you watch them in the qualifying process and, just leading up to those games. Part of the reasons why they struggled with those big European teams and they were able to shoot the lights out against Lithuania and Italy, so it didn't matter. Part of the reasons why they struggle against those teams is because of the lack of size. On the boards, they just lose the rebounding battle very, very often. George Condit IV is a good center, but he's not an amazing rebounder. Tai Odiase is not an amazing rebounder either, but both of them together and rotating, subbing one off for the other, both of them splitting minutes, and maybe you do have some looks in lineups where they're both out there together for size purposes, especially if George Condit IV is shooting some threes. Yeah, like this is going to add some size and physicality to their roster. Tai Odiase being naturalized. Carlos Arroyo clearly wanted this because he was posting about it on his Instagram. He was very, very happy. And I do think that it's going to matter. It gives him that physicality. And now it's just a matter of, all right, can you get Julian Strawther? Can you get some of these other top flight guys from your team, from your program, who have participated, who have said they want to participate? Can you get them to commit? Because here's the other thing you have to be wary about. Teams around them are getting better, even though Argentina has sort of dropped off because they couldn't even qualify for the World Cup and they couldn't even qualify for the Olympics because they kept losing to the Bahamas in their home. And they've been on a very, very bad downswing as of late. But Canada has now gotten more guys to buy in, and they have NBA talent on their roster, and they're already a top 5 team in the world, at least according to the latest FIBA rankings, in which they were ranked 5th. Argentina's still 8th. I disagree with that. I don't know how they're still in the top 10, but that's how the ranking system is. It is what it is. Brazil's 12th, Puerto Rico's 15. So of the teams in the Americas, Puerto Rico's 5th, 15th in the world. They moved up 1 spot because they were 16th before the Olympic process. The Dominican Republic is 18. Puerto Rico beat the Dominican Republic in the World Cup. They needed to shoot really well. and the Dominican Republic still has Karl Anthony Towns as part of their program. Now, we'll see how much he's going to participate moving forward. And then when you go further down, Venezuela 25th, they're still competitive. Mexico 26th, they're still competitive. Is Jaime Jaquez Jr. going to play on the team? When is Kareem Lopez going to be ready? He's seen as the future of Mexican basketball. He just signed to play with the New Zealand Breakers of the Australian Basketball League. So he's already going to be turning pro, and he's still a teenager. That's somebody to look out for in the future. Uruguay is 52nd now, and then the dark horse you really have to worry about are the Bahamas because they're 54th. VJ Edgecombe is probably going to be a lottery pick, maybe even a top 5 pick in next year's draft, and he's already played for the national team. He played for them in the qualifying tournament where they faced Spain in the finals to potentially get to their first Olympics. They lost. It was in Spain, but that is still a very good player that you're going to have to worry about. And obviously DeAndre Ayton's there. Eric Gordon is at the tail end of maybe his NBA career, but he's been representing the national team for the Bahamas lately. Kai Jones has been on the team. Are they going to get Naz Reid? They worked out with Isaiah Mobley. Is Klay Thompson going to switch over? Probably not. But is Klay Thompson going to be part of that also moving forward? These are things you're going to have to worry about. Like, it's not just about, Argentina anymore, because as they fall, Canada rises, the Bahamas rise, and we'll see what happens with the Dominican Republic. So Puerto Rico has to just ultimately be more versatile. This is the main point of this. They have to be a more versatile team that can't only beat you with, hey, if they make their shots, they're going to win, or if they're able to create off of turnovers, they're going to win. It's like, no, this team actually has to be bigger, more physical, and still carry over some of that shooting. So you have to build a team that could win in a number of ways, that is versatile, and that could compete with some of these European basketball teams from a size standpoint if you can do it. So ultimately, the way they're building out their roster, you want to be more competitive despite the rise of Canada and the Bahamas. So the next 3 objectives are this. In 2025, you want to get back on a medal stand in the AmeriCup. They haven't medaled since 2013. I think they're capable of doing it. You want to, in 2027, not just qualify for the World Cup, but you want to get back to the final 8. They haven't been to the quarterfinals since 2002. And if you're really going to return and being one of those great programs, yes, you have to get to the final 8 of a World Cup. And then beyond that, get back to the Olympics. They haven't gone back to back in a long ass time. 2028 is going to be in Los Angeles. That is not necessarily home court, but it's closer than France. That's for damn sure. So you want the team to be more versatile. You want to get Julian Strawther and other top flight Puerto Rican players to play on the national team, so you're not relying on the scoring of guys who are 6 feet and under. Be multifaceted, be multidimensional, be versatile, and ultimately just be a better program to be able to keep your standing as one of the best 15 in the world. You get a medal in the AmeriCup and you start playing better in qualification and play better in the World Cup, you could be looking at a top 10 ranking by the time the next cycle concludes. That's all we have for today. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, watch, rate, review, all those things. Tell your friends, and please do support doing things independently, one-man band stuff for now. Eventually have bigger and bigger plans for a show, more segments, and just more on the channel as seasons and things progress. So please do support. We have more coming. Have a women's basketball version of this coming at some point. Timing's not right, and the rankings aren't even updated after the Olympics, even though it's been done for a couple weeks. So FIBA, get on that. Like, we want to see the women's rankings and see where the Puerto Rican national team stands on there as well, and also have something coming on NBA 2K and whether or not it's worth buying. That's all I'm going to say about that.